Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon SoulSilver. In the last part, we went through Ecruteak City doing the gym and unleashing the two roaming legendaries of Johto in the process. And now it's time for us to head west since we already more or less went east of Ecruteak for now. And Route 39 does have some notable Pokemon you can catch. You can find Snubbles here, I think, in Crystal, but the most likely things you're going to find here that are rare are Farfetch'd, occasionally Tauros, and especially Miltank. And if you want one of those, this is the place to find it. Available in both versions. It's just a rare encounter. Speaking of Pokemon, no time for a new one. This is Doduo, normal flying type, so it's weak to Rock, Electric, and Ice. Doduo's got a pretty decent attack stat and is decently fast, but I don't remember it having a good move set to really match up with that. And its evolution just gets better at doing what it was already good at. I'd overall say it's worth using this over like Pidgey or Spearo's line in my tastes, as I like how fast it is myself, but that's just my own preference in what I like for a Pokemon stat coming into play. Speed up theme for this part, by the way, is the first battle theme from Atelier Ryza 1. I still have yet to play Ryza 2. It's been sitting on my shelf for... I don't want to say how many months. Oh boy. Now, this is the way you're meant to go after doing Ecruteak, but if you want, you can head back towards the east where we went last part, towards Mahogany Town, and do everything in that direction first, and that will cause a problem down the road in some form or manner. Same with going this way, as this is the part of the game I like to equate to the Celadon through Cinnabar section of Gen 1 / Fire Red Leaf Green. To a lesser extent in terms of amount of the game you'll explore during like this, it feels like. At least in terms of the amount of routes, it definitely feels a lot smaller. But almost to a greater extent in the problem it causes. With that said, time for yet another new Pokemon. School kid Chad here's got himself a Mr. Mime. Psychic type in this generation eventually becomes a Psychic Fairy as of Gen 6. Currently, though, it is weak to Bug, Dark, and Ghost. Mr. Mime is a Pokemon I used to write off a lot, if only because it's not very good at taking any kind of physical attack or using them. But frankly, Mr. Mime's special stats are ridiculous, and it's got a decent speed stat to back that up. Part of that's just because it's a one evolution Pokemon at this point. It's just this and a pre-evolution they added in Gen 4. In Gen 8, the Galarian Mr. Mime would get an evolution, which is good in its own right. But for right now, Mr. Mime, if you manage to get your hands on one, it could be a really good special sweeper if you need one. It can even take some special hits if memory serves. I also want to say there's a trainer on this route that'll only give you their phone number if you have a specific Pokemon in your party. I want to say it might be like a Pikachu, but that might technically be the next one. Oh, hey, look, the time shift actually occurred on screen for once. That's rare. Also, I should know, Mr. Mime can have the ability Filter, and Pokemon who have that ability are very special because that ability reduces the amount of damage they take from super effective moves by like 20-25%, one of those. So if you use that right, you can get a real defensive Mr. Mime going. Either way, next new Pokemon is Skiploom. This is a grass-flying type that evolves from Hoppip at like level 18, I think? Grass-flying, so it's weak to Flying, Poison, Rock, Fire, and Ice. Ice is a 4x weakness, notably. Like Hoppip, it's decently fast, but its stats just carry no weight with any kind of learn set it could have and that many weaknesses. It's not worth raising this Pokemon unless you think it's really cute in my eyes. Even its final evolution, that we'll get to in a little bit, I think, I forget exactly when we run into that thing, isn't worth any kind of effort you could put into getting it either outside of Pokedex completion. Hi there. Oh, what you're holding is what they call a Pokedex. Haven't seen one of those in ages. My name is Balba. I used to run a Safari Zone in Fuchsia City, but it was becoming out of date with new entertainment options coming out. I decided to go overseas to learn the newest technology and open a state-of-the-art Safari Zone in Scenewood. It may be more than a coincidence that we are chatting. Why don't we register each other's numbers in the Pokegear? I can give you a call once the Safari Zone's open before I call anyone else. Do you want to register? Sure. That's the way. We're not going to be touching it on that for a bit. I'll let you know over the Pokegear once it's ready. Okay, bye. For now, though, welcome to a little bit of a sub-area. This is the Moo Moo Farms. There is a side quest here I'm not taking care of for a long time, and it technically gives you a key item. The best thing I can tell you is, you know those berry pots we got back at the Sudowoodo fight? Plant Oran berries and then every opportunity you can, and get upwards of, like, I think you need like 6 to 8 of them, because they're gonna come in real handy if you already have them by this point. Well, sort of. The item you get here isn't actually that important. It's more important for multiplayer, which even then can't really do nowadays. And if you really like customizing, it's really cool to have around. But it definitely played more of a role in Platinum, Pearl, and Diamond anyway. Especially since you could buy the items for it much more easily. Oh, also, speaking of Pokédex completion, although this is a bit more prevalent for getting certain team setups going. If you want anything that needs a Thunderstone, you can get Thunderstones randomly from the last on the last route if you give her your Pokegear number. Not super essential, but good to have around, frankly. Ooh, Drain Punch. I believe that's a bug-type move, or is it fighting? Either or. It drains some of the HP it does as damage into your own HP. For I recall, it's not exactly strong, but it has some uses, I suppose. For now, let's head into the actual farm. My Miltank ain't giving me milk anymore. This here farm's got famous milk. Most people want to drink, and it'll give me lots of milk if I need it. If I feed it lots of berries, I reckon, rather. Our milk even goes out to Kanto. So if our own Miltank will give us any milk, we're in trouble. Yeah, the main Miltank in here, you need to feed like 6 to 8 Oran berries for it to be fully healed. If you use all the Oran berries you have, I believe I mentioned you can get them from either like the bug catching contest, I think, or Pokemon can sometimes have it if they pick them up, if they have the pickup ability. And in the, I think it's the Goldenrod department store lottery, you can get them there as well. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to wait and see if you can find more down the line. Now, this sailor is interesting in that they once again have another new Pokemon for us. This is almost series mascot in their own little way. This is Poliwhirl. This evolves from Poliwag at level 25, pure water type, so it's weak to grass and electric. Poliwhirl's got some pretty balanced stats overall, but its only real standout is speed. It's better at doing anything physically than it is with special, which was a little limiting for a pure water type prior to Gen 4. Frankly, I'd say Poliwhirl isn't why you should use the Poliwag line. You're going to want to use it for either of the two evolutions you can get from this point, either by using a Water Stone on it, or trading it with an item we have yet to find, as at that point it gets much more specialized attack-wise in, I think, either direction. So it's just more worth having that. I'll give it this, though. Iconic design. I remember I have several old books from like the Gen 1 era, like an old sort of Where's Waldo book for Pokemon that Poliwhirl was heavily featured in, as well as some scattered other peripherals. There is really something warm and homey about Gen 1-2 expanded materials for Pokemon, be it books that are like the little Where's Waldo-esques, the I Spies, just the weird little kids books they made outside of the anime, and anything that's not the anime but was still like related to the anime. There's just a weird welcoming feeling to it that Pokemon still has, but I think it's partially because they're nowhere near as painted looking as often. They just don't have the same atmosphere. Because the early art style that they used to have, where it was very watercolor-esque, either in the main concept art or otherwise, is pretty much missing nowadays, because I don't want to say they went full anime, because it's always been full anime. But in like Gen 3 art on, there is definitely more of a shift towards the digital art look. And it works, it's iconic in its own right now, but I do miss the old look sometimes. It's kind of like how you look back at old 2D animation when it was all hand-drawn, compare it to the early 2000s, the very late 90s, where they started to do digital coloring, where it looks a little weird, and then you look at nowadays stuff and it looks fine again, but you just miss that slight warmth that was there. There's different kinds of warmth now because you can get the way they do light and things like your name or things like that. But it's a different kind of warmth. Either way, welcome to Olivine City. One of my favorite towns in the game. Despite honestly not much happening in it. Oh, hi there. You again? There's no need to be alert. I don't bother with wimps like you. Speaking of weaklings, the city's gym leader isn't here and is supposedly taking care of a sick Pokémon at the lighthouse. Huh. Boo-hoo. Just let sick Pokémon go. A Pokémon that can't battle is worthless. Why don't you go train at the lighthouse? Who knows? It may make you a bit of a better trainer. I have won against you 3 times in succession so far. I think you're being a little more reflective about your own problems here, man. Jasmine, the gym leader? She's at the lighthouse. She's been tending to a sick Pokemon. Strong trainer is compassionate at the same time. And if we check up here, there's, no one here. So let's, I guess, head over to that lighthouse and see if we can do anything over there. There is notably an NPC I don't think I talked to throughout the entire LP in this town that can give you items that go into the thing you get from healing the Miltank, but it's not really super important. Tying into that slightly, let's talk about battle seals. Battle seals are items that this stranger's going to show off that you can only get by doing that Miltank side quest that play certain animations when you send a Pokemon out into battle, like so. These are a lot more prevalent in main Sinnoh Gen 4. Here in Heart Gold SoulSilver, they're very much an afterthought. With that said, this trainer is notable in that they have a new Pokemon. This is Blossom. This evolves from Oddish's evolution when it was exposed to a Sunstone. Pure grass type, so it's weak to flying, poison, bug, fire, and ice. Blossom is very specially minded. Special defense more than special attack, if memory serves. I believe it's Oddish's other final evolution that's more special attack focused. And since grass is a special move to begin with, even before the physical special split, that means there's some good moves you can use with that. Personally, though, I think not only is the other evolution of Oddish more useful, but there's just better grass types or grass subtyped Pokemon for my taste, or Pokemon that can at least learn grass type moves. Grass type in general is just so defensively weak because of the amount of weaknesses it has that it takes a really good subtype to grass Pokemon for me to really consider using it a lot. Like, I'm immediately thinking of one, I believe, introduced in Gen 4, and I think one in Gen 5. Olivine's on the sea. If it's on the sea, there's bound to be something to catch. I've fished here for 30 years. Would you like to face the sea and fish? Sure. Ah ha ha! We have ourselves a new angler. And here we get the good rod. I actually missed the old rod earlier on in the LP, and I forget if I go back to get it. Fishing is a thing you can do in Pokemon whenever there's water. Every water route has its own set of Pokemon. The old rod usually only allows you to catch Magikarps and Krabbies, but with even the good rod, you can catch some much different Pokemon. In fact, if I look at the upcoming routes, for instance, with the good rod, you can catch Pokemon we don't run into for a while, otherwise Corsola. But it's usually the super rod you're really going to want to get down the line to get the really good Pokemon. Although usually said Pokemon are also evolutions of the ones you can get with the good rod. Now, the lighthouse is a bit of a weird sub-dungeon, in that it's a very linear path that is a lot of forced encounters. In a lot of ways, for reasons we'll get into why, this kind of stands in for the standard gym format here. Also, I just realized I didn't go over Krabby earlier. We'll go over that in a moment. For right now, this is Noctowl. This evolves from Hoot Hoot at level 20, normal flying type, so it is weak against Rock, Electric, and Ice. Noctowl is interesting in that it's very special attack focused and has a high HP stat as well, especially compared to what Hoot Hoot itself was like. But again, normal flying types, while they have a decent learn set at times, I just find there's usually better things you can do than them. Like steel flying, bug flying, poison flying. Genuinely, usually other subtypes, even if they introduce other weaknesses, can do much more interesting things moveset-wise, in my experience. But if you're looking for one, it's not a bad one to get. I would overall recommend Noctowl at least over Fearow, and probably even the Pidgey Dude, you are using a full restore way too early in the game. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Either way, the Krabby that I forgot to go over earlier was a pure water type. So that's weak to grass and electric. Krabby is very tanky on the physical defense, and I think it has a high attack stat, but it's not very slow, it can't do anything specially, and it doesn't have much HP. When you eventually evolve it, if you catch one, it gets much better attack and defense, and I think it does get up to a decent speed point, but it still doesn't have much HP, and its special stats still aren't anything to write home about. But it does have a really good learn set, and a lot of the moves it can learn were physical even before the physical special split, so if you're looking for a water-type Pokemon that can bring in some physical damage, there's a good one in that. Again, I usually have very specific priorities, though, when it comes to my, water types, so we'll save that for later. While there are a good amount of forced encounters in here, there's a lot you can get around. A lot of the encounters that are optional, though, do lead to an item, so it is worth doing. But this area got changed up a little bit for the remake, in that in the original game, if memory serves, it was just a straight shot up. They pull some fun little tricks in this version of this area. But I distinctly remember when I first played Crystal. Not Crystal. I just think Crystal because it's the definitive version of the original Gen 2. When I first played Gold, I got lost at this point in the game because I couldn't quite figure out what to do. And a lot of that, I think, just comes down to the fact that when a game gave me options on where to go, I either couldn't decide where to go, or any of the options to me, I just couldn't figure out how to get past because I only really focused on one Pokemon at a time. There's a lot of RPGs that walled me, not because the games themselves were hard incessantly. It's either because I played them poorly, or they weren't exactly very abrupt in the text about where you had to go. Like there were some parts of FF7 that walled me for that, FF9 did that a little bit. Robopon 2 Ring Edition on the Game Boy Advanced especially did that, but that's for completely different reasons. Oh god, that's a bad idea! I don't know why they make you do that in this version of this place, because I don't think you fall out the top of it like that in the original game at all. But I guess it makes for a memorable sunset and set piece. Cool. I do find this area, though, a little bit of a symptom of something I described after the Whitney fight, where Gen 2 likes to play a bit with how you go about progression in the game, whereas Gen 1 and Fire Red Leaf Green were very note for note, go to town, hit up gym, that's it, barring the occasional blue fight and Team Rocket note. This game likes to be like, here's a bit of a sub-town plot that you have to take care of before you can do something else in the town. Like, back at Goldenrod, we had to go get the radio card before we could fight, Whitney. You had to go to the Slowpoke Well before fighting Rocket, before fighting Bugsy at the Azalea Gym, that kind of stuff. Either way, this is Fearow. This evolves from Spearow at level 20, normal flying type, weak to rock, electric, and ice, immune to ground and ghost. Fearow is very fast and has a high attack stat, and it has an okay moveset from this generation, if memory serves. But again, there's just flying types I think are better suited to a lot of other things. I at least appreciate it being more attack-focused than some other flying types, especially from Gen 1, but Overall, though, the lighthouse isn't much to write home about. You need to do it. In fact, you need to do it before you even go on to the next town, so you don't have to backtrack back and forth all over the place. But you don't have to worry about it too much, is what it comes down to at the end of the day. In fact, I want to say the hardest dungeon in this game isn't until, not counting one that's technically post-game, roughly about Mahogany Town when we're actually supposed to be there? Ish. Because otherwise, this game's dungeons aren't much to write home about. Same with Pokemon in general, really. Its breathing is slight. Uh-oh. This Pokemon always kept the sea lit at night, but it suddenly got sick. It's gasping for air. I understand there's a wonderful pharmacy in Cianwood, but that's across the sea. I can't leave Amphi unattended. May I ask you to get some medicine for me, please? So, in order to get Jasmine to be fightable as a gym leader, we need to go to Cianwood and get some medicine. Thankfully, there's a gym there anyway, so we were gonna head up that town eventually. This is why I recommend doing this before going anywhere else, because frankly, you're gonna need to do it eventually. Might as well do it when it makes more sense for a level curve reason we'll get into down the line. With that, now we're going to get out of the lighthouse. I'm actually gonna cut out a healing trip here. And it's time for us to head west of Olivine. Now, there's a couple of interesting things down this way over on Route 40, namely water you can fish in and all that. For some reason, this guy just likes talking about waves. The Battle Frontier is over here. We'll do some videos dedicated to that down the line. But here's the thing. This is the first major water route in the game. We don't have anyone who can use Surf at the moment, because I don't have a water type or anything that can learn it otherwise, like Rhydon can for some reason. So it's time for us to go pick something up at the Pokéathlon. Off-screen, between recordings, I grinded up to about 2,500 points, so I can buy myself a Water Stone here. Between Pokemon I've given nicknames, you can probably tell what I'm about to have join my party, on top of the fact that I've talked about this being one of my favorite Pokemon for years now. I want to use that on the Eevee that Bill gave us a few parts ago. Using a Water Stone on Eevee causes it to evolve into Vaporeon. Pure water type, so it is weak against grass and electric. It has the water absorbability, so any water type attacks that hit it will just heal its HP pool. And that's absurd because its HP pool is already ridiculous. This Pokemon's very focused on HP, special attack, and I think it's special defense as well. Every evolution is monotype, but has a very focused stat and then a somewhat focused stat. And for how I played the game, where I tend to seem to favor special attackers overall, barring the occasional physical attacker, the HP tankiness of Vaporeon is just fantastic. On top of it, it's one of the only Pokemon that'll actively always use a stat boosting move that it learns down its level line, because the Acid Armor move that Vaporeon eventually learns is just absurdly good for raising that defense and making that HP stat just stand out all the more. I love this Pokemon. With that said, time for a new Pokemon, although you'll get really annoyed by this one down the line. This is Tentacool. Water poison type, so it's weak against ground, electric, and psychic. The Tentacool line is interesting in that, for being a very repetitively seen Pokemon, it has a very high special attack stat that gets even better after it evolves. So you could arguably have one of these around as a really good special tank that's decently fast by the time it evolves in your team for something you can find very early in the game, usually, whenever they're available at least. So I would recommend catching one of these if you're looking for something to really tank some special attacks. I know some very big LPers have used them in their LPs over the years, especially back in Gen 3, when physical special split made tanks in some ways more viable, in some ways less. But for my tastes, I will almost always go with Vaporeon once again. With that said, welcome to Route 40/41/ I guess we're about to be in the Whirl Islands, basically. The main reason this video is as long as it is because there's a lot of new Pokemon that are water type that we're going to be fighting on this route entirely, honestly. For instance, this water trainer is going to be throwing out a Staryu. Staryu is a pure water type, which means it is weak against grass and electric. Staryu is fast and has a decent special attack stat. Its learn set isn't much to write home about at the moment, but when you evolve it by using a Water Stone on it, we'll get more into that in a few moments, you get a very good, fast Pokemon that can deliver some really good special hits pretty quickly, and its defenses aren't anything to be laughed at on top of everything else it has, I guess? This is a very good water type to raise if you're looking for one that can do some good attacking on the special side. Also, if you're wondering why I went for the Pokéathlon Water Stone over the one that Fisherman Tully gives you just west of Mahogany Town, it's mostly because it's a lot more predictable when it's going to be there, because while usually Pokégear calls happen at general time zones, sort of, like say you get a certain number, that person will usually call on like Saturday nights or something like that. Not only was I believe closer to the day when I could have just bought the Water Stone at the Pokéathlon with the points, it's a lot more useful for me personally to just not to worry about a random chance-ish event, because it's sort of set but not really, it's complicated. Either way, next new Pokemon, this is Shelder. This is a pure water type, so it's weak to grass and electric. Shelter's tanky on the physical side, but it can't really do much in its attacks or anything HP or speed-wise. Shelter, as hard as it can be to find, is worth it just for the evolution, I find, because its evolution is extraordinarily physically tanky, and can learn some good moves to back up its decent attack stats by that point. The big problem is you have to wait a while to catch one of these, no matter what game it's in, it feels like. Notably, though, this Pokemon line gained an ability it can have in Gen 4 called Skill Link. Skill Link makes it so that if you have an attack like Bullet Seed on it that hits multiple times, Fury Swipes is another one, Pin Missile, I believe it can learn naturally. Skill Link makes it so that that particular attack will always hit the maximum amount of times it can hit, and that's super helpful to have around. Next up, though, we got Wartortle, the middle evolution of the Gen 1 Water Starter, so thus pure Water type, so weak to Grass and Electric. Wartortle really starts to showcase how this particular line is a very tanky line compared to Charmeleon's heavily attack-based line. And it can learn some good moves to back it up, but it really takes until the third evolution, I find, for the Squirtle line to really show its power. But that's also because I prefer the usual attack focus that the fire starters have overall, because I like to start off a Pokemon game being able to hit hard, essentially. Going the tank route to start is just not usually my style. And that mostly just comes down to my playstyle in games outside of Pokemon. I like to be more aggressive when it comes to attacking enemies. Whether or not I like to be the slow but heavy damage aggressive or the fast but low damage aggressive depends on the game. There are a lot of trainers surrounding the Whirl Islands here, so we're gonna have just a lot of speeded up fights. Some of them are optional, but you need to at least fight, I believe, 3 no matter where you go, I think. Maybe if you go along the top route, they're technically optional all the way through. But, might as well, especially when they have a new Pokemon for us to see. This is Tentacruel. Water Poison type evolves from Tentacool at level 30. This thing is ridiculous. Weak to Ground, Electric, and Psychic. Its special defense stat is super high, as is its speed, and it has an okay set of attack stats to go along with it. I've used it, I can recommend it. It has some pretty good special moves it can use in this generation, on top of some moves that were no longer special, or that are now special, I believe. The main reason I've gone for Vaporeon over, say, the Tentacruel line in this case, despite them being similarly tanky in different ways, is A, favoritism, because Vaporeon's one of my favorite Pokemon, but B, it's a matter of too many poisons. If I, say, went with Tentacruel on my team, I would have 3 poison subtypes on my team, and that's too many. I don't even usually like to double dip on my Pokemon subtypes. Move types across the team, not so much, just because they'll use them different ways, especially from the physical special split on. But the only reason I'm okay with, say, having the Haunter that's Ghost Poison and the Crobat that is Flying Poison is A, both of them at least have a way around one of Poison's weaknesses, thanks to either being Flying type or having Levitate. And B, they're very focused on different things attacking-wise, so I don't mind that. If I went for, say, the Tentacruel over the Vaporeon, I would have a special attacker that's also Poison type, and I already have that in the Haunter line. Picking Pokemon teams is hard for me. There's one rule I like to go with in it that we'll see down the line more clearly, but I'm very much, I try to plan, but sometimes I just have to make sacrifices for the things I want. With that said, time for another new Pokemon. Kaylee here's got Seaking. This evolves from Goldeen at level 33, pure water type, so it is weak to Grass and Electric. Seaking's got an okay defense stat, at least one of its 2 defense stats, I forget which one it is, and it can do physical attacks pretty well, but it's just nowhere near specialized enough, I find. I think it has an okay moveset from memory. I think it can learn some good HMs. By and large, every water type it feels like can learn Surf, which is a good thing to have around for anything that has a good special attack stat. But I think it can learn some good physical moves to go along with it. The big thing is I just am not a big fan of this line overall compared to other water types like Vaporeon or Tentacruel, for instance. So it just ends up ultimately being forgotten by me. Always liked the design, though. I don't know why. Just always stuck out to me. Probably because it may have scared me a little bit as a kid. I don't know why. Something about that cry. Ugh. The big problem about this route to me, by the way, is getting anywhere where there is a Pokemon Center is rough, because while going west is technically shorter, I don't want to go to that area too early for reasons. Thankfully, most of the Pokemon trainers around here don't have too many Pokemon. I think only one has like 5. Most of them only have 1 or 2. I feel a big part for Pokemon pacing that gets overlooked is how many Pokemon trainers will throw at you super early, because barring like the occasional 5-6 Magikarp trainer, most trainers on a route, if there's a lot of trainers, only have 1 or 2 Pokemon. Speaking of Pokemon though, and I know the entire game is that, new one, this is Horsey, pure water type, so weak to grass and electric. Horsey is, being an old gen water type, especially Gen 1 water type, it's very focused on its special attack, but I think you can take an okay physical hit here and there. Getting one of these, though, I'd say is worth it if you can trade Pokemon, because its final evolution they added in Gen 2, when being traded with the Dragon Scale item we'll get down the line, is frankly ridiculous. As well, it doesn't have any super standout stats, it has a fantastic moveset, and its typing took until Gen 6 to have a very notable weakness, frankly. It's so weird, too, because I always remember Horsey, to me, being kind of pathetic as a kid. Because growing up, I think I talked about this somewhat recently on the LP, or otherwise on stream, I want to say maybe. I'm getting my memories getting a little mixed up here. Horsey was in one of the earliest Pokemon episodes I remember seeing, because I had the VHS that had, like, the episode where Misty gets the Horsey, the latter of the SSN episodes, and the giant Pokemon theme park episode or something like that. Maybe that was 2 separate VHSs even. I can't remember at this point. Either way, new Pokemon. Once again, this is Remoraid, pure water type. You're getting tired of hearing that? Weak to grass and electric. It's good at attacking and it's decently fast for a first stage, but its evolution is where it can really shine, because it gets really good at attacking. The big problem is, if I remember, its learn set, while decent, is just not worth my attention at the moment. I've used that line before. It can be good. I just already have a water type, is what it came down to. Again, most of my opinions on Pokemon are from a casual perspective and what I've done from my own experience. There's a lot of times where there's Pokemon I didn't use a lot at some point, but they ended up being like super good and competitive, or I just missed how to use them well growing up. There's even a notable instance of that we'll see later down the line. Either way, this is Starmie. This evolves from Staryu when you use a Water Stone on it. Water Psychic type, so it's now weak to Bug, Ghost, Grass, Electric, and Dark. And it kind of needs that weakness chain, because it's really fast, it has a really high special attack set, and it's got some okay defenses, and a decent learn set from memory. This is another water type I can recommend using. So Gen 1 had a surprising amount of good water types looking back. Mind you, dartboard sort of theory, I guess, where you're always going to hit something of good eventually, because if memory serves, to this day, there are still more water types than any other type of Pokemon, subtype, or otherwise in the game. But in that fight, Dove hit level 30. At level 30, Flaffy evolves into Ampharos, still a pure electric type, so it's still only weak to ground. But this thing is ridiculous. Extraordinarily high special attack, good special defense, good physical stats, good HP. The biggest problem with it is that it's kind of slow for a final evolution. I love Ampharos. I kind of wrote it off a lot when I was younger. This Pokemon can bring some pain, and it's the main reason I usually pick up the Quick Claw in this game, because it's great to have this Pokemon move first on a lot of turns, if it manages to proc that Quick Claw, at least. I remember as a kid, I used to give Quick Claws a lot to my starters, despite the fact that a lot of the starters I chose are usually the faster one anyway. Or at least in the middle of the three, because like the Charizard line was decently fast, the Cyndaquil line's pretty fast. I remember the Torchic line being the second fastest in that set, I believe. I believe that was the Treecko line that was faster by the end of it. I want to say that Chimchar line was the fastest. It's been a while since I played through Main Sinnoh, and I am kind of owed to play through that. Either way, next new Pokemon is Gyarados. This evolves from Magikarp at level 20. Water Flying type, which is a bit of a weird type in some regards. So it is weak to Rock. It has a 4 times weakness to Electricity. This Pokemon is worth raising a Magikarp alone. High attack stat, high special defense, decently fast, good HP. Its special attack is its biggest weakness, especially with what water type used to be prior to Gen 4. But now that the physical special split's here, this Pokemon is fantastic. I could recommend raising a Magikarp heavily because of this thing. Good learn set starting in Gen 4 onwards. And once it got that Mega Evolution in Gen 6, even though I haven't talked too much about those for other Pokemon, this thing is great. The biggest problem is that 4 times weakness to electricity, from memory, because there are a lot of electric types that are a lot of Pokemon that can learn electric type moves, so you can have a pretty common weakness for it. I'd say it's worth it though. Again though, favoritism, Vaporeon. And I swear I remember there was a generation where it could learn Fly because of its flying subtype, but I think that might have been a fever dream or me actually just dreaming, which is a little unfortunate. That said, time for the final new Pokemon of the part. Denise here's got a Seal. Pure water type, weak to electric and grass. If you're tired of hearing that by the end of today's part, I'm sorry. Seal doesn't really show its specialty too much early on. Good HP stat, decent special defense. It's when it evolves that it really can bring some pain, because not only does it gain a decent subtype for its learn set, but it really starts to specialize in that split HP defense stat. It can be pretty beefy. Big problem is, I send out a flying type against something that has ice moves. Ooh, hanging on by a thread there, Kenny. Good job, buddy. Water definitely is a type thinking about it, where judging a Pokemon lineup its first evolution usually isn't the way to go. Mostly because water types, it feels like more than any other type, probably because there's more water types again than anything else. Gain a subtype that really helps that Pokemon line out on like the second or third evolution. With that, though, that's the last Pokemon trainer on this route. Technically, I think there's like one more that we can't reach until we're able to breach those whirlpools we've seen around these islands. We're finally in Cianwood City, but with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 11, we're going to explore around Cianwood City and see what's waiting for us around here. See you guys then.